Welcome home, Raiders. Tonight, we have Overwatch League, WoW Arena to talk about NA Cup number 3, plus our very own Jocelyn Moffat was at HCT Toronto over the weekend. We will check in and see how she did and who she played against during this fantastic tournament as Convert to Raid presents BattleNet Sports. Welcome, everybody, to BattleNet Sports. My name is Pat Crane. I am your host of this show, and we actually have quite a bit to talk about this week. We have Overwatch League to talk about for sure. Not only are we going to parse through all the games this week, but we also have our first player that was released from a team in Overwatch League, and we will talk more about that. Also, WoW Arena NA Cup number 3. That means that we have all of the qualifications before our spring fling, the spring finals, at the end of the month. So we'll check in with Fist on that stuff. Plus, Jocelyn Moffat returns to us from HCT Toronto, where she played against a really big name. Let's just say it that way. One of the top players, actually the top player of the tournament. So we will check in with her about all of that stuff. But before we get into that, I just kind of want to talk about a couple of quick things. World Electronics Sports Games, WESG, and it's over in China. It's happening right now. It's the 13th through the 18th, and it's StarCraft 2. There is a Hearthstone component and some other games as well. Now, there were some big issues over there for the players, like the hotels that they were staying in had no water or tea-colored water or no power or live rats. And the players started immediately like live tweeting all of this stuff. And apparently, there was an apology from the hotel saying that they had moved all 500 players and staff to other hotels, reportedly extremely swanky ones. One player was tweeting, he said from his room, jacuzzi. So, no pictures, but whatever. So that seems to be kind of taken care of, but that was the big kerfuffle with WESG this year. And apparently it was an issue last year too, but it wasn't as bad or as noticed anyway. So that is happening right there. And now we will move on to Hearthstone. I am so excited to talk Hearthstone with Jocelyn Moffat from The Angry Chicken right now. I can hardly stand it. Hello, Joss.
Hey, Pat. How's it going?
Good. So I want to talk about HCT Toronto in your neck of the woods that happened. And you were actually a part of this thing, right?
I was, yes. So I actually participated. I was a contestant, a competitor, and it was a ton of fun.
Right, and you went 0-2, right?
I did,
but you lost to like the man, right? I mean, you lost to the guy who just won it all, right?
I did. So yeah, when we got our first bracket right at the very beginning, I was like, "Oh my God, I got a pro player. I know Odin, like he's really good."
Right.
And so I was nervous and I was, not ready for his lineup. He brought Warrior. I was like, "Man, I did not see that coming." So yeah, I played against Odimian in the first round. I lost 3 games in a row with my tempo mage. And actually, I don't really feel that bad about that because I changed my kind of strategy the night before. I decided that a more kind of like greedy, aggressive lineup would be a good idea. And it seems like every other player was on a different page and went totally control. So I just wrecked my decks, which was fine. But Endymion, so I lost 3 in a row to him.
Yep.
And he ended up going on to win the entire tournament, including going 3-0 against every opponent in the top 8, which is insane.
And so that's got to make you feel pretty good as a competitor, because you're like, hey, man, maybe I could have beat those top 8 other than him, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. My mom says that I came second.
You came at a distant second. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. But that's really cool. So how was the tournament overall from a player perspective? How was the tournament? What kind of lead us through kind of the weekend as it was?
Sure. So the HCT Toronto event was part of a larger conference. It was the EGLX conference, which it's like Electronic Gaming Something Expo.
Right.
And it's the biggest video game convention in Canada.
Right.
So it was really cool. It was a little bit intimidating because you've got, this big, huge convention, and then off in the back corner, you've got all the eSports stuff, and they had the stage set up, and, you're 2 feet away from like Frodan and TJ and Firebat. Plus, since there wasn't an online qualifier ahead of time, it was just an open Swiss tournament. The amount of pro players that were present at HCT Toronto was insane. Like half the bracket was made up of pro players. So it was a really cool experience. I had a great time. The innkeepers were fantastic. The tournament admins were great. And it was just like, it was a super easy check-in process. And then the thing that they did that I didn't realize, because I haven't participated, this was only my second LAN tournament. The only other one I'd been to previously was not HCT Montreal, DreamHack Montreal, like a year and a half ago.
Yep.
And what they did for HCT Toronto is you actually had to like move to a different match station. So you were always sitting right across the table from whoever you were competing with, which was also a little bit nerve-wracking because it's not the kind of Hearthstone I'm used to playing. I'm used to playing with my computer screen against no one. So being able to see my opponent's reactions was crazy.
Were you trash talking at all? You should have been.
Okay.
You should have been like
I'm Canadian, Pat. Do you really think I was trash talking?
Were you apologizing from across the screens?
Definitely. And it was funny because there would be a couple of moments where it's like, obviously, with the caliber of player that is going to be competing in an HCT event, everyone has a very good understanding of what their opponent's decks are trying to do and what their like ultimate best plays are on each turn and how they want the matchups to play out. Most people know this information, so it would be like I would play like a Luneth on 6 as my tempo mage, and then like Endymion be across the table, just kind of like nod, like that's the play. And I'm like, oh my God, it just messes with your head when you're not used to playing like that.
But that's really cool. So did you talk to him afterwards and be like, hey, you got any tips for somebody?
I did. Yeah, I got it. That was what was really cool about actually playing across the table from them is you actually got to kind of like decompress and like have a quick little conversation. We didn't stand around talking too much afterwards because like everyone else around you is still competing. There was almost 200 competitors, so you don't want to stand there and be distracting. But yeah, I did get a couple of quick like, oh, good game, and like, oh yeah, I did this and I didn't draw this, and oh, I wasn't ready for your decks, and it was cool to actually get to meet your competitors and kind of talk through some of the plays that had happened during the game.
Very cool. Did you get any other interviews or anything like that over the weekend, or was it because I know that you said if you were out of the competition that you would grab a microphone and try to get in front of somebody's face or something?
I was completely intending on doing that, but unfortunately I got sick on Sunday, so I couldn't actually attend. So I know I was really, really upset because there were so many players that I wanted to like meet and talk to. And I did see quite a few. I saw like Ant was there, Amnesiac, Hot Form, Purple, like there were all kinds of pro players there. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get any interviews. I was so sad.
Well,
I was waiting for the top 8 because I was like, I wanted to know like what the good lineups were and like target my questions towards like these top 8 players and what the other pro players thought about the top 8 lineups and stuff. And then so I was purposely waiting for the last day to have like the most information I possibly could. And then couldn't actually go to the con on Sunday.
I'm just so excited that you got to play against the #1 dude. From the tourney.
Yeah, so what are the chances, right?
That's really, I think that's really cool, especially from a non-pro player standpoint, That's awesome. That's just...
Oh, yeah. And I feel like I'm really happy with maybe not necessarily the results, but with the way that I played. Sure. I didn't necessarily feel that I had any misplays. It's just his lineup was built to target my lineup. So I just had a lot of really bad matchups.
So you just got screwed.
And then,
yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then in my second round, I was actually up 2-1 and I was favored, but I just never drew. I was playing Spiteful Priest and I never drew my Spiteful Summoners. I was playing against Jade Druid, never drew my Geist. I just drew really poorly in my last two games in the second round. So I mean, I got 2 wins off the guy, but and it was really funny because when I finished that round, he literally we finalized the bracket, and then he just looked up and went, "Did you never get Dustbreaker?" I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh man." He's like, "I kept waiting for it to happen." I was like, "I know." It was really nice to kind of get that little bit of validation where
That's cool.
It wasn't my play. It was just, I just drew poorly.
It was just your luck. Bad draws.
It was just my luck. Yeah.
You gotta practice drawing from
exactly.
For a
yeah.
while. Get better at it. So let's talk about who actually won what were the players that kind of ranked in the tops for
right. So we've already talked about Odimian. Yep. Obviously, he went through and won the whole thing. He beat out Hunter Ace, who came second. And actually, EU in general had a really good showing. Poor NA. We were out pretty early on. But yeah, we had a lot of kind of big name players really made it to the top 8. So we had Hunter Ace, Galleon, Aqua Wonder, Silent Storm. Chalky just missed out. He came 9th. So there were a lot of really big name players that made it into the top 8.
Right. Well, you have it in a place like Toronto. Everybody wants to visit, right?
Exactly. I was actually really sad because it's been warm here, so there isn't a whole lot of snow. And I'm like, everyone who's going to come to Canada is going to be wanting snow. And it was like, there's nothing.
No, it's fine. Everybody's inside anyway.
That's true.
So what's next for HCT? What's coming up this weekend?
This weekend, we have HCT Bangkok, and we actually just had a new expansion announcement in Hearthstone. So HCT Bangkok and then HCT Oslo, which is coming a few weeks after that, are probably going to be our last 2 tournaments in this current tournament meta. So like I said, Control was really kind of popular at HCT Toronto. I think that's probably the way that the meta is going to be, quote unquote, figured out for the remaining 2 tournaments.
Sure.
But yeah, so we've only got a couple more before we're going to get our new expansion release and therefore new standard year coming in mid-April. So if you're interested in any of this kind of stuff and you want to be, seeing the last couple of tournaments in this meta, then yeah, it's Bangkok and Oslo. And unfortunately, we don't have deck lists for Bangkok yet. But like I said, I think it's going to probably play out very similar to Toronto. People are starting to target the more aggressive lineups like Tempo Mage and both Murloc and Dude Paladin. And so I think that the Control lineups is what we're going to see. And notable players, the ones that I was able to find so far from just literally stalking them on Twitter, was Orange, Aqua Wonder, Teebs, Crane, Mr. Yagoot, Tars, RDU, Hot Meowth, and Hunter Ace are all going to have a presence at HCT Bangkok. So those are just the ones that are tweeting about it. Unfortunately, I don't have a player list. They haven't posted it yet. But
I got to admit, I always root for Crane. I always do.
Yeah.
So just a real quick question. Since we did have the next expansion announcement and everything like that, what do you think of the next expansion? And do you see any really big shakeups? There's always a shakeup for meta, but what kind of impact do you think it'll have?
This is the biggest impact that any expansion is ever going to have because of the rotation of the standard year. So we're actually losing quite a few kind of tentpole cards. We're losing Old Gods, Karazhan, and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. They're all rotating out of standard. So what we're going to be, we're losing things like Jades, which have been around in Druid and Paladin decks since they came out. They've been ridiculously strong, and
I'm so happy
people are lucky
going.
to see it go. Exactly,
so happy,
happy to see it go.
Right.
But then we're also losing things like N'Zoth and Medivh that are kind of very helpful in control type decks to give you some late game, mid to late game pressure. So we're losing a lot of those tools. Obviously, we're getting a new expansion, but this is basically the smallest pool of cards that we get the whole entire year. So it's so hard to say what's actually going to happen because we did get the expansion announcement with a couple of new keywords, but we only saw, I believe, 6 cards with a hint at a 7th. So it's really hard to judge what exactly is going to happen. But Echo is a new keyword, which lets you play the same card multiple times in a turn. The only time we've seen that before was Unstable Evolution in Shaman. And obviously, Shaman has not been very popular, so it's hard to gauge what the actual power level of something like that will be. And then the other keyword is Rush, which is really interesting and could be great for control because basically the way that works is the same way as Charge works, except you can't attack heroes. So you won't be able to use them in super aggressive decks. It's basically like it's going to be a tool to remove something and then still have a minion on the board. So I'm excited for the new expansion, and this, like I said, is always the biggest shakeup. So it's really hard to predict what the tournament meta is going to look like, especially since we haven't seen all the cards yet. We've seen literally 6.5 out of 135.
Right. Well, I guess we'll see. But so these last couple of these next couple of tournaments are going to be the last ones for this particular meta, most likely.
Right. So we've got HCT Bangkok and HCT Oslo that are happening in March. And then we've got a couple of other tournaments that are scheduled for April, but we don't have dates for when they're scheduled in April. Okay. And we're expecting the new expansion to come April 12th is the kind of community decided probable release date. So
it's been decided by the community. It's going to happen. So
our best guess is April 12th.
All right.
So with that, I mean, there's only basically 1 week in April before the rotation. So I don't know if either one of those tournaments are scheduled for the very beginning of April. We'll have to see once the dates are actually released.
Okay. All right. Well, Joss, it's been a pleasure talking Hearthstone with you, and best of luck in your professional Hearthstone career as you move forward. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, let's talk a little bit about OWL, the Overwatch League. And of course, here to help us out is Thist, returning once again. Hello, Thist.
I'm glad you clarified OWL because I was like, I love owls.
Right.
They're great. Birds are the best.
Birds are the best. And of course, you know Thist from Lagging Balls and doubletap.com, dbltap.com. Now, Thist, I just wanted to discuss a couple of things about this last week of games. This week 4, right? Mm-hmm. Or was it week 3? So
we're in week 4 now.
We are in week 4 now. Games are just about to start for week 4. We're a little late in getting this show out to everybody, so sorry about that. But for week 3, let's have that little discussion because there were some interesting games over week 3, weren't there?
Oh, was there? Oh my goodness.
What were some of your favorites?
Can I just talk? Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead to last Saturday. LA Gladiators, my second favorite team, quickly becoming my most favorite team because reasons. They beat the London Spitfire.
Right.
3-1.
And they also won the battle for Los Angeles.
They did.
Which is kind of cool.
It was a great week for them. Like,
it really was.
Unbelievable. They played spectacularly, and I couldn't have been more proud, honestly. And that Saturday also saw Florida beating Dallas.
How do you feel about that one? I know that you're a Fuel fan, so
it's just like with everything that's happening with the Fuel lately, like I feel like maybe that had more to do with just where their heads were at. Maybe like no offense to Florida or anything. Like Florida is becoming, like they're getting there. It's taken a while. They're getting there. But traditionally, and I can't really say that because it's only been like a stage and a half so far. But traditionally, Dallas would be expected to beat Florida, and that didn't happen. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe. I don't know. Dallas is obviously in a bad spot right now, probably the worst spot out of any team. And some teams are still waiting for people to join their team.
Sure. Right. And maybe we should talk about that right now and get that kind of out of the way. So XQC from the Fuel was suspended again, right? And this time it was for emotes, and I don't want to get into all the controversy about it because, I mean, it was just kind of weird, and I think there might have been some other things, and I don't know what. But he was suspended again, and it was for the rest of the stage, and this is the second time that it's happened for XQC. And the Fuel just said, you know what? We gave you a shot, and you can't play for us because you're suspended, so we're just going to drop you.
Right? Yeah, that's what happened. I think Custa said it best on one of his streams. He said that something like he wasn't a reliable tank. Like he wasn't, we couldn't rely on him to practice with us. We couldn't rely on him to actually be there to play with us. And if you're on a team and you're trying to win, that there's no sense in keeping that person if you can't rely on them. Like there's no sense in having a teammate, especially one who's a main tank.
Right.
If you can't rely on them to be there. And like the first suspension was awful, and everybody hoped that it was, XQC learning his lesson and that, everything would move on and everything would be fine. And that obviously like hurt the Dallas Fuel a lot in stage 1. And so, stage 2, we come back, everything's great. But then, there's that controversy. XQC gets banned again for 4 games, and he gets fined like $4,000. And, everybody's kind of wondering like, what's going on? Is the league going to stand for this? Are they going to give him like a third chance? Like, is it a strike 3 type of thing? But then we got this notification from Dallas Fuel that they added OGE to their roster, and he is a tank, and everybody's thinking like, what does that mean? Like, is he a backup? Like, what's happening? Yep. And then the day before it was announced that the Dallas Fuel was going to drop XQC, he was sharing all these cryptic messages and like talking about all these things. And it seemed like, to me, like I was watching it like a hawk all day. And I had a feeling that maybe he would quit the league. Like that's what it seemed like. And so he went on his stream, and he pretended to quit, and it was insane. Like I was sitting in my office, and a bunch of us were watching it, and he was pretending to cry, and he pretended to quit, and then he's like, "No, I'm not quitting," blah 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 blah, and it was all funny, whatever. So we all thought that everything was fine, and that, he was making a joke out of it, so everything's fine. But no, Dallas dropped him, and they announced it on Twitter. And when they did, I realized that XQC was streaming. So I went to his stream, and he was playing a game, like he was on Reinhardt. He finished the game. And then obviously, people were telling him, like asking him what was up, and he stopped playing, and he shared his screen, and he was looking at the tweet, and we were looking at him looking at the tweet. And it was a really interesting moment,
So did he find out by tweet that he was dropped?
No, he knew ahead of time. I was like, we've heard about this week earlier, a different situation, but whatever. Yeah, he didn't know that it was coming out that day, though. Right. So he wasn't prepared for that. But he seemed in good spirits about it. He's a full-time streamer now. He spoke a little candidly about how he pushed really hard to get into the league, and by the time he was finished pushing himself to be there, he kind of forgot why he wanted it in the first place. And I don't know. I think that it's in everybody's best interest that he's not a part of it anymore. And he's not banned from the league, like the league didn't let him go. So like there is like this like teeny tiny chance that at some point, someday or soon or whenever, some other team might pick him up. I doubt it. But
I think I think that because of the 2 suspensions and the larger fines, especially for the second one, I think that a lot of teams would look at that and just say, you know what, I think I'll pass on that, because we only have 12 spots for our roster, and we want to make sure that those members are playing.
Absolutely. So I don't know. It's a sad situation. I'm obviously an XQC fan. I still think he's great. But I love Blizzard the most. Like Blizzard is the thing that means the most to me. I want the league to succeed the most, and I think this is just a good thing overall. So
Yep, and it's tough. It's a tough thing if you're an XQC fan, and for those guys, I mean, he was very divisive. He was a little, some might say, toxic or trolly or whatever. And I know that he has his fans as well. So no matter what you think of him, you can go enjoy your stream if you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be the best way to do it. All right, let's get back to the games from week 3. Just a little bit, because I want to talk about a couple of them. And actually, I'm looking at Houston Outlaws from
yes.
week 3. It's kind of, they were on kind of this downward trajectory. And then they managed to do a reverse sweep on Florida Mayhem. Florida Mayhem is actually looking really good. They had a good week. They almost won against the Outlaws, and they won against the Fuel, so that's great. And the Houston Outlaws look like they got a little something back from that reverse sweep, so we'll see how it carries them into week 4, right?
I mean, they're such a good team. They're such a strong team, and it's becoming more and more exciting to see them play whoever every time. And speaking of exciting, Shanghai, how about them getting one map against Seoul Dynasty? I mean, that's good. That's good for them.
I suppose.
That's good. I mean, that's like arguably like the best team versus the not best team.
Right. And if you look at the overall standings, and I'm not going to break it down for the stage or anything like that, but if you look at the overall standings, we still have New York Excelsior, Seoul Dynasty, London Spitfire, the Valiant Outlaws, those guys at the top. At the bottom, you have Shanghai still 0-16.
Yeah.
Ouch. And Florida Mayhem finally has a couple of wins under their belt. And Dallas is the next one from the bottom with 5 wins. So, we're starting to see what's going on. The Shock actually won against the Fuel as well.
They did, yeah. And they just signed 2 players.
Oh, right.
Yes, Moth and Architect. Moth is a former Toronto eSports player.
Okay.
And he's going to be their 3rd support on the team. So now they can, sort of like switch out who's going to be playing the support role. They also grabbed a DPS player, Architect, and he's from the South Korean team Conbox. And, he's a good DPS player. I think with a deeper bench for the Shock, like it's going to be easier to just sort of like switch up their team compositions a little bit.
Yep.
And I think that they've been lacking that a little bit as well. So
they have been, and it's not like they've been playing really poorly. I think it's just that kind of the comps that they're facing is not necessarily optimal for their team. So
totally, and it's always best to have as many players as possible. Just for ease of your other players.
Yep.
There are a lot of games.
Speaking of other players, let's talk about the new players that have yet to come into the league, like Gaguri and other players. I know that we've got a couple for the Dragons that are coming in. That were announced weeks ago, still not here.
Oh, aren't visas great just for getting into the States? Like,
and it's really tough right now as well.
Yeah, it is. So, I'm an expat. Like, I'm Canadian, and it was still difficult for me to get into this country. I got kicked out once, in fact, so it's just like, it's not easy, like
I want to hear that story. I want to hear that story sometime about how you kicked out.
Sure. That was a time.
Anyway.
One night in Detroit, my friend. But yeah, so 4 of them are expected to have a visa interview tomorrow on the 15th. Yep.
Yeah.
And they are going to arrive in the U.S. before the end of the month.
Okay.
So, we're hoping for the best. Like, just because they have an interview and just because they're expected to arrive doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to go smoothly. But
right.
Can the Dragons just catch a break, please? Can we just?
They need to catch a break, and
maybe the immigration people will be Overwatch League fans or something, and they'll be like,
wouldn't that be wonderful?
Just go, please.
All right. Well, let's take a look ahead to this week as far as the games go, and talk about some of the big ones that in your mind. What are some of the ones that you are really interested in seeing? Oh, today I see a Kind of a big game. Should be great.
Today. Well, besides the obvious New York Excelsior versus Seoul Dynasty, which is always explosive and amazing to watch. I'm interested to see how my boys, the Dallas Fuel, do against Boston, simply because, like, how are they feeling right now? Are they feeling good? Are they happy? Like, are they upset? Like, what's going to happen? I mean, obviously we're used to not seeing XQC, but like, I don't know. I'm just hoping that, like, maybe instead of this being like, oh, everything bad is happening to us and that's going to affect our morale, maybe it's more of like, yay, we're finally moving on. Maybe we can play better. Maybe we all have a better morale and maybe they'll beat Boston. I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see.
You think? I
don't know. So I think the big game for tonight, though, is actually NYXL versus Seoul. We talked about that a little bit. Tomorrow night, I'm looking at Houston Outlaws versus the Gladiators. That should be a good one. With the Gladiators kind of on the upswing and the Outlaw maybe turning it around a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fair matchup, so it's going to be really interesting to watch.
What else over the weekend are you looking at?
Seoul Dynasty versus London, like that's going to be amazing too. Just like those top 3 Korean teams, just watching them go head to head. It's almost like I don't really care who wins. I just want to see these top eSport athletes go head to head. Like it's always just, it's just like it doesn't get any better than that. It's like the Olympics or something.
I hear you. And on Saturday, I won't know who to root for. San Francisco Shock versus the Houston Outlaws. I love both teams for different reasons, but
maybe you could just hope that they all have fun. Because that's what matters, right?
Oh, okay. I don't know about professional esports. I'm not sure what the goal really is. I would think it would be to win, but whatever. It's all good.
It's video games, Pat. We're all just trying to have fun.
Right. Okay, well, maybe we should switch over to Warcraft Arena.
Yeah.
What do you say? Now, I was gone all last weekend, so I missed all of the different matches that were going on, especially for WoW Arena. Maybe you could help me out because it looks like we had a little bit of a shakeup in the bracket.
Did we?
A little bit, right?
Which one?
Well, there were a couple of them, right? So we had Method Black getting beat by the Rejects.
Bye, Method Black.
Who else? Method Orange got beat.
Yeah, but they're fine. They're still in. So we actually have like
Super Frogs got beat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
what?
It's all good. It's all good for Frogs and the Rejects.
All right.
And Method Orange, because after 6 weeks, we finally have our AWC Spring Final qualified teams.
Who are the teams that are qualified for NA?
Okay, for NA, starting at the bottom, Sneakier Snakes. And
I like that name.
Oh my God, it came down to those, I'll just get in that to a minute. Okay. Sneakier Snakes, Super Frogs, which I'm happy about, the Rejects, and Method Orange.
Okay.
So
all right,
that's our NA guys.
Okay.
And Europe, Reformed, Ascendant, XRB to the Moon, and Skill Cap Black.
Right on.
I just honestly, like, I couldn't be happier with how it came down. Like I love the Snakes, the Frogs, the Rejects, Method Orange. Like they're so good to watch. Like they're so much fun. And so on Sunday.
Yeah.
On Sunday, 3 teams were competing for the last spot in the spring finals. Tilted, The Move, and Sneakier Snakes. Who do you think won? I mean, obviously we know, but like it came down to Sneakier Snakes versus the Rejects.
Yeah.
And like winning that match would bump The Move out of their spot. So it was literally like a matter of not life and death, but basically that at that point. So the final round went 4-0, Sneakier Snakes versus Rejects. Like,
I know. I saw that and I was like, what?
Yeah,
what?
No, they just dominated. And it sucks though, because like the Rejects brought out a Fire Mage, and I was like, woo! And then that Fire Mage went down. Like
I saw your
tweet.
I saw your tweet, and then it was like the next minute. It was
Yeah, that literally just happened, and they tried it again in another match, and then they didn't try that again after that.
And then they did not try that again.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great, and
did we see any crazy comps or anything like that as far as the weekend went?
Nothing like the triple monk that we saw the weekend before.
Triple monk was cool.
Yeah. I sincerely hope to see that again in the spring finals. I think that would be hilarious. I hope to see weird comps like that anytime.
Right.
Because it's sort of like, I love what it does to the casters. Like, they have to kind of like figure it out and try to make like these weird like assumptions and stuff. And I love what it does to the gameplay, because you can literally see like the opposing team try to figure it out on the fly kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yep.
I don't know. It's
good.
Like anything can happen.
It is.
I'm just excited. So the first day of the NA versus EU Spring Finals is March 31st.
Yep.
That's a Saturday at 10 a.m. PDT. And then the second day is April 1st and Sunday at 10 a.m. PDT. So that's going to be a good weekend, I think.
I think so. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that weekend too. So we'll have to keep it in mind as we approach those dates. So,
yep.
All right. Do you have any final analysis on who you think is gonna take this thing between NA and EU? Who's gonna win? Who's gonna walk away as the top team?
I don't want to say it out loud because then people might be mad at me.
Well, maybe a couple of them then.
Fine. I think I think Europe's gonna take it though. You know, like, I'm cheering for NA obviously, but I think Europe's gonna take it. I think Europe is just absolutely ferocious and just incredibly skilled and incredibly. It almost seems like they can figure out what's going to happen before it actually happens. You know?
And being an NA player, we should know this already, because we understand that like Method has always had strong teams, PvE and PvP. Or I'm sorry, like just all of the EU teams have been very, very strong. So
yes,
all of the EU teams have been very, very strong. Yeah, I'm just kind of used to it when we talk about rating. Especially, you just go, true. Oh yeah, so Method's gonna come in and just kick everybody's butt, and we'll be done.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
So I mean, that's a good point though. Like, we can just, I don't know, hope for the best for NA. Hope, you know, they obviously know what they're getting into, and I think that's what makes the NA versus EU so exciting, because it's not just like, oh hey buddy, let's go. You know, it's more like, we know what this region is like.
Right.
We can see that they're powerful. We can see that they're obviously bringing their best game. And so how are we going to counter that? And it's just...
All I know is that I will be rooting for snakes and for frogs.
Go snakes and frogs.
And other animals probably as well. Varmints.
Sure.
Varmints
like 3 pandas. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon about all of the interesting sports stuff over this next week.
Yeah, you will.
And that is going to do it for this episode of BattleNet Sports. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I want to thank Thist and of course Jocelyn for helping out and talking with me about all the wonderful esports going on. Don't forget, this weekend, actually, we have the Eastern Clash as well. So if you're into HOTS and you want to check out what's going on over in Asia, the Eastern Clash is happening this weekend, and you can check out all the action there. Plus, we will have more Overwatch League, more Hearthstone, and just more esports action, all the Blizzard esports action you could want. Thank you once again for coming over and checking us out. We really do appreciate it. And for all things, make sure to join us over at converttoraid.com. That's where you can get our audio, our video, all of the different knickknacks and doodads that we offer, including our guild information over in World of Warcraft, our Discord info, and all that kind of stuff. So please go to converttoraid.com and join us there. And until next time, for all the guys on Convert to Raid, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.